Let's return to the studio and begin with our Kickstarter, looking at risks and mitigation of epidemics in the country, and also try to understand the management of epidemics in the country as we have seen over the last few years. I'll be introducing my guest very shortly. We are also expecting another later as we inch forward. But infectious diseases are spread by either bacterial or viral agents and are ever present in society. Usually infected cases are present in numbers below an expected threshold, but every once in a while there may be an outbreak, a new strain of a new disease that has significant impact either at local or global level. A complementary approach organized by the concept of medicalization directs attention to the processes and the authority as well as social controls that both produce and regulate epidemics, pandemics, and other outbreaks within our society. That alone sounds like a very complicated preamble, but with me in the studio is Wilbur Sabiti, a co-chair of the Interdisciplinary Consortium for Epidemics, and of course he is one of the individuals that are working when it comes to the interventions that are being rolled out, led by the Ministry of Health. You're most welcome to the program.
Thank you, Mr. Higgin.
No doubt. It's a pleasure to have you on board. I do understand that you are in the country for a symposium that was organized by ISA. And of course, we also expect to speak to an official from ISA a little bit later. But if you don't mind, what is your thrust of work when it comes to matters, pandemics, epidemics, and outbreaks?
Thank you so very much. I am Dr. Wilbur Sabit, and good morning, viewers. I'm delighted to speak to you and about a subject that I'm passionate about, whose history began during my time at Makerere University many years ago. So I am an infectious disease scientist, and I've been doing this for many years, currently based at the University of St. Andrews. As University of St. Andrews, the third oldest university in the United Kingdom.
St. Andrews University, that is about 600 years?
It's over 600 years
over
old,
600.
and
wow.
the third oldest in the English-speaking world. And something special about St. Andrews is that it's the grandfather of golf. So whoever is a passionate golfer, they must have to come to St. Andrews and play some golf. But today it's time for epidemics.
Yeah, no doubt. Of course, this conversation comes on the backdrop of an outbreak of Mpox in the country. We have had cases registered in pockets across the country. What I do know is that the management of this particular outbreak has been outstanding on the part of the Ministry of Health. But as this was ongoing, news of an outbreak of the Marburg fever in Rwanda brought our own medics' antennas up. In other words, the possibility of a cross-border spill was one that was mooted and something that the medics have to deal with. I do not know how far that is, but first take us through what warrants an epidemiological investigation. Other diseases can occur more commonly, and only deviations from the norm warrant an investigation. At what point do we declare that this warrants epidemiological investigation?
Good. Thank you very much. So what we do is what we call disease surveillance. And in epidemiology, you know there are diseases that occur in what we call endemic diseases.
Yeah.
So these are diseases that are always there in the background with a certain known number of cases. So when such cases happen, there's no worry because, you know, this is the level of endemicity. But when you begin to see cases rise above that number, then that becomes an outbreak and then deserves immediate attention. Then we have those what we call emerging pathogens. They are not always there, and we know when they emerge, they cause deaths or infections very, very fast. So those ones, you don't even have to wait until you see 5, 10 cases.
Yeah.
Even one case is enough for you to pay attention immediately.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. So the fact that Mpox was registered, and some Ugandans were saying, but this is not as virulent, for example, as some of the outbreaks that we have seen before. They began to imagine, or rather think, that it was being given attention that was over the board. When it comes to Mpox, I know right now the interventions are rolling out from the Ministry of Health, but what is the danger when it comes to Mpox? Just take us through that.
Thank you very much. So Mpox has always been regarded as an endemic disease in Africa. And that's why you saw that there was not quick attention being paid to. But when the cases began to rise and move beyond what is normally known as endemic, then we granted attention. The other important thing that happened is that there was what we call mutation. So a new variant of Mpox virus emerged, and this one began to spread faster than the older variant. And of course, we had the epicenter is Democratic Republic of Congo, and this new variant is now spread to the neighboring countries, causing more cases. That's why there is focused attention on Mpox, because we must respond. We must control it before it involves many cases.
Okay. Thank you for that submission that gives us a clear idea of exactly how the Mpox trajectory, especially when it comes to interventions, is ongoing. Allow me welcome to the program Elena Kembabazi, Program Manager at ISA. Many thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
All right. Earlier, I was informed that Dr. Sabiti is in the country for a symposium that is being organized by ISA. Very shortly, you will be able to take us through what that thrust is all about. But in terms of outbreaks, risks, as well as mitigation of epidemics in the country, ISA must be working very closely with the multi-sector actors to ensure concerted actions are taken to stem anything that might go out of control. Take us through that.
I think that we are concerned. You know, we went through COVID. We expected that the lessons we learned, then you people, our health sector should be set, ready to go. If something happens, we should be able to actually just get going. And I don't know that we are there yet. There is always an emphasis on prevention, and that's great, but we do things slowly. They've talked about monkeypox for a while. It's recently that we began seeing the adverts in Uganda. In fact, I have a nephew in another country, and he was like, have you heard about Mpox? We learned about it at school. They call it Mpox. I say, what are the symptoms? Because you know I do all this health stuff. And I was like, this. But then I began to think in that place, and he's there.
Okay. Elena, I seem to be, Elena, just a moment. My apologies for holding you in your tracks. I do seem to be having a little bit of hitch, and that was being worked on. But allow me just engage Dr. Wilbur Sabiti on what next in light of the fact that Mpox is here and interventions are being undertaken, but there is also the threat of Marburg that we see that is emerging out of Rwanda, where 8 people have already died, and a number that, well, within statistical corridors might not be significant, but 26 cases are being monitored. That is enough to warrant medics across the border here to pay attention, isn't it? Yes, it is.
First, the ISA is interdisciplinary consortium for epidemic research, and it brings together countries in East and Central Africa, plus partners in the global north, including myself co-chairing this symposium.
Yeah.
And our vision or our aim is to ensure that research is done that informs, that gives evidence to respond effectively to these epidemics. And if I can just take you a little bit back to during COVID time, President Museveni was very good in giving us some metaphors on how you should respond to an epidemic. And he said when they were in the bush, whenever they would be pursuing an enemy, they would, if you hear sound, you keep quiet, you listen.
Listen to the sound.
You strategize, and then you get a course of action. And that's the same that we're doing for research. So this epidemic has emerged. So what do we do? What's the medicine? How does it spread? How can we stop it from spreading?
That's right.
And do we need vaccines? Are these vaccines effective? Maybe a vaccine was invented somewhere in Germany or in Europe. Does it work here in Africa? So researchers need to do that work quickly. But the next steps is that we need to first respond so that we have this disease under control, but then use that opportunity to research. Remember, Ms. Hegenyi, that these epidemics are not only problems, but they are opportunities for the pathogen economy. So what research does is the solution that we get for this epidemic, like Mpox, like Marburg, are also products that we can inject into our economy and sell them to boost our economy. So it's an opportunity for us to innovate and solve the problem, at the same time develop our economies.
Okay. Later we shall be talking about the pathogen economy and where exactly African countries find themselves on that. But allow me engage Elena Kambabazi. My apologies for halting you in tracks earlier. I was grappling with the vagaries of technology. It was me they were seeing and you they were hearing. But now I think we have the advantage of both.
Yes.
So just please continue with your submission and then we shall be able to go ahead after that.
Yes, I was saying that for me it doesn't really matter whether it's monkeypox or Marburg fever or Ebola or COVID. What is the state of our health system? I think that's the most fundamental question. And with COVID, we no longer have any excuse at all. Okay. Because we got the whole world focused on health. You know, those of us who've been working on health for a while, sometimes people take a while to understand we must invest in health. Yeah. But everyone seemed to get it. Are we doing it? Look at the budget. Do you feel health was a priority in this budget? A budget that where health is getting less than 5%. Do you feel health is a priority? What is the state of our health facilities at community level? We come from a district where we still don't have a district hospital. They're transforming the health center 4 into a district hospital. You rush someone and they go to the private. And by the way, they can't even get ICU there. If you need ICU, you're going to Mbara. That is where we are. And they'll tell you, when you go to government facilities, you're even charged money. Why? That is how much we have commercialized our health system. I saw Parliament debating last week. And the chair said this idea of no money, we should rethink it in government hospitals. Are you people alive to the realities of Ugandans? Where very few can even get $1 million, according to Bank of Uganda statistics. And whenever you have any disease, you want people to swiftly and quickly be able to seek health care. They won't seek health care if there are no government facilities. They won't seek health care if the government facilities have nothing and the staff are going to moonlight in private and are never there. They won't seek care if they're being charged money. They won't seek care if they're going to rush the nearest private hospital expecting something. If bills get up, they're detained. We have detention, and the Ministry of Health has done nothing to curb that practice. As long as you have these very detrimental and inhumane practices happening in healthcare, people are going to stay home, and you do not want them home. How will you trace them? In Argentina, a person got so badly off with monkeypox, they ended up in ICU. Do we have ICUs ready? So I think we need to begin to rethink some of our laxity towards healthcare.
And I think that for us, what we do in Uganda, there's a threat, we run. And that makes Ugandans not trust you, because when they hear, now when some of them hear monkeypox, they say, Alana, your health things, they just want the money to eat. They did the COVID apartments. Did we get, where are the things they are supposed to have done during COVID? We did an ISA report that said, where did the COVID-19 money go? There were critical things that should have been done. The president will get up there and say, all these beds by this time, all these things. Why is our health sector not ready? Why? And I think the Ministry of Health needs to understand, and government of Uganda, that trust is a very fragile thing. Once you lose trust, the message doesn't matter. If I do not trust you, you can come and tell me the house is on fire. I'll be like, she's a muyai. And we should all ban. So that's what we need to get to.
That's a very interesting submission there. And Dr. Sabiti, listening to that, I just want to, first and foremost, before I go into the aspects of trust and how communication, especially public information on the part of health workers and specialized medics is concerned, can go a long way in solving some of these pandemics. For example, when Mpox does present to a person that has contracted the disease, what time frame is envisaged that they will, for example, manifest and present with the symptoms? If they get sufficient attention and treatment, this is the amount of days that they ought to be isolated. And in case they come into contact with another person, that person should also be either isolated or should not get into contact with another person, so that to limit the outbreak itself, because that is very fundamental, and it does, that's how the whole point she makes, the fact that a person who has come into contact with the victim might not trust the system and stay away, and then the chain does continue. How is that addressed, and how quickly can it be arrested?
Thank you so much. As I said before, epidemics are opportunities, and they should be a point where we say, never again. And so they should inspire us to prepare our health system to be able to respond effectively in such an occurrence. So the question you asked is that how long does it take for this, for someone to be infectious or for the disease to be detected? So Mpox has slightly longer incubation period than COVID. So COVID, I think within 7 days, somebody's already shedding the virus and they are infectious. That was for COVID, but for Mpox, maybe 2 to 3 weeks, the person is still incubating. So, but we don't know yet, and this has been a challenge actually started off by COVID. Traditionally in medicine and biological sciences, we've known that diseases, infectious diseases, only spread when somebody is expressing symptoms. But COVID taught us that that's not true. That's not true. Because many asymptomatic people were spreading the disease and they were all okay. You couldn't guess by looking at them. Now, diseases like Mpox, they seem to be behaving in the same way because we are seeing very newly born babies having Mpox. So there are some aspects that are still unknown, and that's where research comes in. So for us as researchers, we want to make sure we unravel those unknowns and make sure that we develop better ways to stop spread transmission, because if you don't know when something spreads, there's no way you can control it effectively.
And that brings me to the question of the ongoing symposium that is either not that symposium you talked about. You're attending this particular symposium. Has it been called in light of the outbreak, or it's something that is like an annual ritual? The reason I'm asking this particular question is because we have so many annual rituals in the country. Conferences, workshops where people who have studied so many things come together and begin to talk to themselves and at the country instead of talking to us. Is this one of them? What exactly is this up to, and what's going to be achieved?
This is not one of those that you are used to. But first, ISA, the Interdisciplinary Consortium for Epidemic Research, was started here, founded here in Uganda, and that was during the recent Ebola outbreak in Mubende. And the reason it was formed was to bring together researchers within Uganda and neighboring countries to be on the table of finding solutions of problems that affect them. Yeah. And that's why ISA was formed. And so is this symposium the same as the usual? No. One, it is specifically responding to this mpox, and we are under direction and the wisdom of the Minister of Science and Technology that this symposium is not going to be like just coming, talking, and then go home. This is a symposium must come out with practical strategies on how to address mpox, the emerging Marburg in Rwanda, and other epidemics. Because epidemics are here and they will come again. When you look at Africa in the last 20 years, we've had like over 70 outbreaks and epidemics. So they are here. So we should be in the mud, developing everything that is needed, the tools that we need to fight these epidemics whenever they come. So this symposium is not as usual. We must go home with the right strategies and implement them. So the government of Uganda should come and ask us after 3 years, so what did you do? What were the outputs and what was the impact that came out of this symposium? All
right, no doubt. Thank you very much for that message of hope. You do like the kind of optimism that Dr. Sabiti expresses, don't you?
I like that African researchers are taking lead on these issues. It was an issue we learned from COVID, like no one is coming to save you. Yeah. And so your researchers, your people need to be taking lead. But Ugandans and Africans everywhere are interested in the implementation, in the bottlenecks, the issues I told you about under-financed public health systems, which doesn't make sense in this time. Having a health facility that lacks basics, that lacks doctors, that lacks drugs, should not make sense in this century. We have private sector who you have failed to regulate. They detain people, they overprice, they do price gouging like we saw during COVID. And if you don't deal with that, and I saw this by the way, not just in Uganda, because I traveled during that time, and it was an issue across the African continent, the whole issue of you deposit land titles, or they detain your patient. I don't know how much it is, they'll deny you oxygen. We had an oxygen crisis. So we need to also match the research with dealing with these bottlenecks in the health system. Because if you don't do it, you will have the best research, but you need the people to come to the health system so you can help them. And you cannot do that unless you have actually curbed these issues by the rising cost of healthcare, by investing in the public health system. Right. Africans are struggling. We are worse off than we were before COVID. There's a cost of living crisis. Yesterday I was hearing Iran has invaded Israel, and that could affect our fuel supply, and therefore that is going to bring us back to, you know how it was before with early Russia, Ukraine. We have climate change and failing harvest, so people just don't have a lot of money in their pockets. And so they need to be able to know that they can go to a public health facility. The doctor will work on them. The drugs are there. You're failing to pay them. We're arguing about paying medical interns. Medical interns who are the ones who staff. You know what? You're going to ask these people now to come and, because they're sacrificing themselves. That's what we saw during COVID. You stay home, for them they go and they work, but you don't want to pay them. So we must make sure we deal with this. I want to say one final thing. When money is released, there must be value for money. And I say that because in Uganda we had an oxygen crisis and some machines were new that failed. So I think we need to really check about the accountability, because right now public trust is very low. When we hear about corruption scandals, when we wonder where money is going, the OAG report comes out every year, business as usual. You need to be able to deal with accountability issues, because you want to curb any leakages, you need all the money you can get, and also increase the resource envelope to finance the public health system, to finance the research that you're talking about, that is very important, to finance the public health awareness campaigns. And so I think that's very important.
Thank you very much. Of course, those listening to Elena Kembabazi for the very first time must understand that as one of the foremost activists when it comes to interventions on facilitating social justice under the Initiative for Social and Economic Rights. Your pessimism and the fact that you want things done differently from what has been the case is perfectly understandable. But allow me ask Dr. Sabiti, when it comes to the pathogen economy, Africa is always on the tail end in terms of reception of vaccines, but even the controversies around administration of vaccines is also one of the ongoing concerns, and that limits the ability of the public healthcare system to manage outbreaks when there is a massive mistrust on the effectiveness and the efficacy of vaccines itself, or themselves rather. I just want you to take us, and maybe if you can, debunk some of the misinformation that is there, especially on vaccines. Do we even have the mpox vaccine here?
Yes, there is, I think, doses that are already on the way or in the country already, but there is a plan for that. So, but thank you so much for that
I know it's
great question. And I mean, in joining to what Irena talked about, the poorly funded health care system, is that when you talk to the leader, the leader will say, where is money? We need money to be able to invest in the health care system. And our research, the pathogen economy, can be one of the sources that generates money that can be invested into the health care. So we need to translate our research to products that we can put on the market. So you said Africa is on the tail end, but yesterday we had a talk from the Minister of Science and Technology and Innovations, Dr. Msenelo, and she said we should look at these epidemics as opportunities, so that every solution we provide is a product that we can sell on the market. And secondly, we should not fear. Because when these things happen, we panic. We are all like running around, and like, oh, we can't manage it. Oh, we need the World Health Organization to come and help. America CDC to come and help. We are saying we panic, but actually we have the experience. We know that we live with the people. We can provide the solutions that can be translated into products that can boost our economy and lead the world.
Oh, of course. You'll be submitting very shortly on the pathogen economy. Time now for a short break. We are, of course, talking risks and mitigation of epidemics in the country in light of the mpox and what is being feared to be a cross-border spill-off of Marburg, especially following the news that at least 8 people have died in Rwanda. We'll be talking about that a little bit later after the break. Do stay with us. Welcome back. I'm glad you're still with us on Morning at NTV. The Kickstarter is ongoing, and we're looking at risks and mitigation of epidemics in the country. What's happening right now is that the Ministry of Health and other players are dealing with the mpox outbreak in the country, and you must be able to understand right now that mpox is still on and infections are still spreading. However, new developments indicate that Rwanda has registered 8 deaths of the Marburg hemorrhagic fever, and of course fears are the spillover cross-border could happen. What we do know is that the medical facilities and of course the public health regime here in the country has the ability to deal with an outbreak. We've done that for Ebola, we've done it for Marburg before, and of course mpox is largely under control. The dividends of trust and the belief that we can deal with this should not be swept under the carpet, but there are aspects that need to be given all the attention that they need to be. And I'll go to Elana Kembabazi, the program manager at ISA. The pathogen economy has a lot of controversies around it. Right now, we are expecting a vaccine for mpox. At the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, we whined on and about how the vaccines were not reaching us.
Yeah.
I do not know why the sub-Saharan Africa region, or Africa for that matter, consistently finds itself on the unenviable end when it comes to vaccine availability, yet we are big on expenditure, on research, on vaccines. Where is the disconnect?
I think that there's still a bit of colonization in our minds.
A bit of what?
Maybe colonization, or the idea that people are coming to save you.
Another person is coming to save
yes,
us.
and that maybe we're not experts, but we are experts. We're experts about our settings. One of the things we saw during COVID were vaccines that required refrigeration. You know very well, you're going to go to places, not even very far, just deep in Midoma here, that do not have power. Right? And people can say, okay, what doesn't require power? Refrigeration, or what can use solar? You know, now there's green energy, but even then there's solar. What happens if the road has just flooded and the rain, and then it's a long distance? So I think it's very important that Africans are at the forefront of really thinking through vaccines and access to medicines that will work in our conditions, and also how we integrate even the natural, you know, we saw it with COVID, that COVID now became the thing, yet we had the tree and the bark the whole time. So it's important we have Africans doing it, and I commend Doctor and his team for beginning to think through that. I think that the pathogen economy, however, when we say things like the economy, it's very exciting because I know we need money, so we want to speak in economic terms. But what we also saw during COVID was you cannot reduce health to a figure, to a monetary figure. What we saw with COVID vaccines were the companies were making the vaccines at cheap cost, and they were even using taxpayers' money of some countries like the UK and so forth, and they were selling at exorbitant costs. I remember you had all the fights we used to have here. Per dose, why is Uganda getting this much per dose? How will we afford this, right? And so we must be aware of that, because on the one hand, ISA has been pushing and arguing that things like for example, intellectual property barriers that make you hold the knowledge in a crisis and price it the way you want, and then people don't get medicines. That happened for HIV, that happened for COVID vaccines. For us, the black-brown population, is always us. So I think it's very important that as our researchers here are doing this, they don't forget the reality of our people, which is many people struggle to put food on the table. And so you cannot begin just pricing them anyhow. Our governments you know, have a lot of competing priorities to deal with social protection and so forth, so they should be spending so much money on per dose for a particular vaccine. I think, however, that it's also very important to address where the money comes from. The doctor talks about where does the money come from. We're a very wealthy continent that has a lot of natural resources, and no one wants to talk about this. The gold, the oil, the cobalt, and the other renewable minerals. Copper is now back in style.
People talk about it,
but they don't talk about it.
Management of those resources.
They don't talk about it in the context of how we could revolutionize our health systems and our social protection systems, right? Like, for people to actually get a taste of the natural resources God blessed us with. They will feel that in the health system when they go there. There's a doctor, there are drugs. It can be used to invest in a lot more of this research. We can do away with tax exemptions, which we see are given in ad hoc manner. And when you actually calculate that, that is money that could be put into our health system. So we need to be able to link the discussions we're having around the economy, and ISA's economic justice program is always talking about the, you know, the economic bit of it to the health bit, because they all feed into each other. You need the resources for health, and also we have seen that without a good and healthy population and a good health system, you cannot have the economy, because our economy suffered during COVID. We have just, the IMF has said we have just barely recovered from it. Yeah. So I think it's very important on two fronts, that as we invest in these things, of course, and we harness them, we don't exploit our people, because we'll be Africans developing these resources, and that we look at all, in economic social rights, we look at, have you used maximum available resources? Have you looked at curbing the leakages, the illicit financial flows, the corruption? Have you looked at the natural resources? Have you looked at your tax system? Are you making the wealthy pay their fair share of tax? So you can gather this pot of money to invest in your people.
All right, thank you very much.
May I add something on what Ms. Kemba said? I like what she said about stopping thinking that somebody is going to come and solve your problems.
Yeah, sure.
Because these are our problems, and they are our opportunities that we should address. so we should be intentional because the vaccines, the diagnostics, the drugs, all those are financial, the economic products. And wherever they come from, if UK has invested, America has invested, they expect a return on their investment.
That's right.
And so, and they come and sell to us. Now, if researchers in Uganda, in Africa, want to get on the table, they need to have backup from their governments. Because it's what we call this pathogen economy politics. No one will want you to have your vaccine so that you no longer buy from them.
Of course, yeah.
So you need to be intentional as the country and back up your scientists and give them the protection they need to develop these products. And actually, the opportunity of this, the Africa Economic Treaty, whereby we can sell to all countries in Africa. If Africa can begin to innovate and buy from itself, that's a big market.
Wow.
That's where we need to go. Otherwise, you can manufacture something here, and it will be made to die here and not to go anywhere.
Interesting submission you bring forth, and it reveals perhaps some of the contradictions of our own progress in medicine and public health. But let me ask a question that, of course, I don't want to put you on the spot. You're a scientist, not a politician.
Yes.
But when conversations are undertaken in collaboration mode with the politicians, you spoke about the fact that there are people who want to sell vaccines to us and are not really interested in us being able to make these vaccines. When the conversations are reaching fever pitch among researchers and scientists, how do you navigate that very slippery ground where the politicians ought to understand that there is a deliberate effort, either from the West, the manufacturers of these vaccines, and the huge pharma economy in the West, to ensure that we do not have progress in terms of our own research or ability to come up with these vaccines? What is the next chapter of thought, action? What do you come up with?
So, a few days ago, I thought about it as we were organizing this this symposium, because we had to kind of press a number of buttons. It was not only science.
Yeah.
You have to make sure that the political leaders are involved, the policymakers are involved, because you need to have the media involved. So there are different buttons that you need to press in order to get something working. And for Africa, a good scientist is that scientist who understands the ecosystem from where they are working.
Wow.
So the truth is that our emerging research economy, it's young, it needs to be protected. The way we are trying to protect our oil from Lake Albert, the way we should protect science, we should make sure there are very good laws about intellectual property, and we should make sure that how far, if I have a patent, how far is it protected? Is it only in Uganda? Does it cover the whole of East Africa or the whole of Africa or beyond Africa? Those are the things that we need to put into place. I can use this example, China. China is now the second economic power to USA. And they do their own research. They fund their own research, and they do their own innovations in their country. So when you fund your own research, you have the freedom to innovate as you want. No one's going to come and knock at your door and say, stop doing that. Because you're using your money, you're not using their money, so they cannot stop you from doing what you're doing.
Right. And
then when you have done it, you need that protection in terms of market. How you access the market at your national level, at the regional level, at the whole continent level, so that the products can reach far. Otherwise, we need to, and I think our leaders like President Museveni understand it very well. I've heard him many times talk about this. We need that intentionality, and especially those who work with him, to really intentionally support this research agenda as one of the drivers of economic development, and it will happen.
Great that you implore the president and the system around him to be more intentional. There was a time the president was listening to one of the scientists at an interface who completely watered down the aspects of vaccines and how the World Health Organization was trying to impose a certain protocol onto Africa. And the president, in typical fashion, shifted the responsibility of investigating that particular issue to a set of scientists who appeared to have, well, some cohort or affiliation to the World Health Organization. And in my mind, I was like, the people being accused are the ones you're asking to investigate the accusations. How is that going to work? But Elana, if I may co-opt you into this particular conversation, the scientists are frustrated. The fact that there isn't intentionality on the part of the politicians who determine where the funding goes and what kind of interventions we should be following up. It is something that we have seen and talked about time and again, but the fundamental shift must be identified if we are to inch further away from the activism on social justice and economic rights. Do you see a genuine ability of the African political class to begin to look at the fact that they are being used by the West? Is there a genuine ability for us to identify that, accept it, and begin to work from that point of view?
I think everything exists within an ecosystem.
Can we decolonize?
And let's talk, let's talk a bit about that. First of all, let's look at our discussions here. The budget is read every year. Right now, they're in budget consultations. So this is when you try to get your things in, you all as a scientist. You find that it's either organizations, we are monitoring, we are going to parliament, and Africa, people are just seated. And I'm like, the budget is the most important thing. You people, you can't do anything without money. You must be interested in where is the budget allocated? Where are the leakages? What is the Office of the Auditor General, because they put out reports every year, saying, because they show you where the leakages are, and then you come and you make your case. And it must be persistent. Ugandans must wake up, because the discussions around investment in this are also budget discussions. And around tax as well. You know, what is happening when in the tax regime, because the tax bills also come out around the budget. So those three, and I say this with full affection, my father was a scientist, you don't get to sit back and wait and then lament. We must be involved in that. Our members of parliament must have understood the importance of prioritizing this, because according to our constitution, appropriation is the role of parliament.
Are you appealing? Are you hoping?
I am not just hoping. I am telling Ugandans and Africans everywhere to wake up. You must be interested in how money is allocated. You must look at your natural resources and see, are they being taxed? Gold was not taxed for billions in this country in the last financial year. You must look at, where is the money going? What policies are coming out? It's not a thing for civil society. It affects you. And then I think there's a space for collaboration. For example, in health, you must collaborate with the WHO. I actually disagree with anyone who says leave the WHO alone. I think you must be able, because they're looking at it from a broader scale. And of course, politics comes in. But you know your context, you know what is happening, you should be able to do so. And then you must invest in solutions that work for people. The challenge I'm seeing for us is we just run with the West. Public-private partnerships in health, we run. That is how the Lubowa Hospital came about. Have you seen anything there? How many years ago was it? I shouldn't talk too much. We're in Supreme Court on the legality of it. But I can talk about what is on ground. Has it delivered? Yeah. We must look at these solutions that are given sometimes from the West, from institutions based there, and say, will this work for our people? And we must be at the forefront of developing solutions that will work for our people. I keep saying this to them, that as you invest in your research and so forth, I heard him talking about intellectual property. We must make sure it is protected everywhere. We were also the same ones lamenting when intellectual property became a barrier to us getting medicines. Our people died with HIV when there was medicines. Our people died with COVID when there were vaccines, because a few companies decided no. So as you deal with that, you must also make sure that your solutions as Africans are working for your people, because you need the people to agitate as well and say, why aren't you investing in the scientists? Why aren't you investing? You know how people were shouting for this professor on COVID? You people, government of Uganda, where is the money? The man has come up with something that we can all access very cheaply, because they felt they could access it. So whatever you're developing, you must be aware about the realities of our people, the lived realities. We must make sure healthcare is accessible. We have invested in it.
Thank you so much, Elena Kambabazi. Dr. Wilbur Sabiti, I will again say welcome to the typical conversation in Uganda. The lamentation is really high, but the frustration also comes through, especially when it comes to how government interventions are rolled out. There's a lot of corruption, there's so much misuse and misallocation. Sometimes it erodes the trust for any other intervention that may come through. But allow me ask what is no doubt a very final but not finite question. Funding for public health care interventions has, over the last 5 years or so, occasioned by COVID-19, seen a redirection where it is not going directly to government agencies but to private actors. And there are those who are proponents of that kind of strategy who say maybe money can reach the beneficiaries, or the services can reach the beneficiaries and bypass the corruption and the grand theft that occurs when government has the money with itself. Is this something that you paid attention to? Does it work?
So what I mentioned earlier was a good scientist, a good researcher in Africa must understand the ecosystem within which they are working. And you mentioned the subject of corruption. That's a big elephant, and I'm not sure I have the expertise to address it in this talk show. Yeah. But understanding the ecosystem, the landscape in which you are working is very important. I think, yes, I agree with Ms. Kambabazi that we have resources, we have opportunities that sometimes we are missing, that we would have taken advantage of and actually delivered better health care. And that one should be addressed. There's no doubt about that. The investment, the return on investment, that primary health care that someone needs when they come to the clinic is crucial. And corruption affects everywhere, affects health, affects education, affects every part of society. So that one must be addressed, and all of us, the people, should be involved in this fight. Oh. I want to say one thing, and someone from the teaching background is that we must also address how we educate our people. Education, because the mindset, we must train our people to question, not just accept and take it as it is. Question what it is, ask, demand for accountability, demand for value for money, and then, because our leaders are products of us. So if we do not demand them to deliver quality, high quality, they will always deliver poor quality. So stuff. It's us to make sure that things are delivered the way we want them. And we have the power. Sometimes the people don't know that they have the power. They need to know that they have the power to demand to make the leaders drive the way they want to drive. Because if I'm going to NTV, the driver takes me to NBS and says, no, I'm going to NTV, please drive to NTV. So we must know where we're going and demand the leaders to drive us there. All right.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wilbur Sabiti, co-chair of the Interdisciplinary Consortium on Epidemics. and also Dawn at the St. Andrews University in the UK. Many thanks to Elena Kembabazi, a programs manager at the Initiative for Social and Economic Rights. That is ISA. Your submissions and perspective on these matters has emboldened our understanding of what we can do as a people to better ourselves, but most importantly, a critical thinking and the ability to question the things that are occasioned upon us. It's exactly why you have gotten an education. But if you're going to sit back and not be able to question some of these things, then maybe you are setting yourself up for failure across the various aspects of life. We do hope the politicians will understand, listen, and also take heed in order to ensure that the much needed socio-economic transformation that Ugandans are yearning for is achieved earlier than later. Morning at NTV is glad to amplify these issues and others, and it's been a pleasure having your company. I'll be seeing you tomorrow